Lieutenant Jake Morrison had seen a lot of strange things during his 3 years aboard the Earth starship Horizon, but nothing prepared him for the diplomatic mission to planet Azuria, where the entire population was blue-skinned and the royal family was bluer than most. He stood in the grand hall of the Crystal Palace trying not to stare at Princess Kira, who sat on a throne made of what looked like frozen starlight, and her skin was such a deep, vibrant blue that it reminded him of cartoon characters from old Earth shows. His crewmate Amy Chen elbowed him in the ribs when she noticed him smirking and whispered, "Keep it together, Morrison." But it was too late because the words slipped out before he could stop them. "You know, you kind of look like a blue Smurf," he said with a grin, thinking it was a harmless observation. The entire throne room went silent, and every Azurian noble turned to stare at him with wide eyes. And Princess Kira, who had been maintaining a regal composure suddenly, did something unexpected. Her blue cheeks flushed an even deeper shade of violet, and she looked down at her hands as a small smile played at the corners of her lips. Captain Lisa Martinez, who was leading the diplomatic team, shot Jake a death glare that promised a very long conversation later. But Princess Kira stood from her throne and descended the crystalline steps toward him. "What is this Smurf you speak of?" she asked, and her voice was soft like wind chimes, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity, rather than anger. Jake felt his own face heating up as he realized he might have just caused an intergalactic incident, and he stammered, trying to explain that it was a cartoon character from Earth, and they were small blue creatures who lived in mushroom houses and were generally considered cute. The princess tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made his heart race, and then she did something that shocked everyone in the room, including her own advisors. She laughed, and it was a beautiful sound that echoed through the hall like music. "I have accessed your Earth databases and I see these Smurfs now," she said, and her violet blush deepened as she stepped closer to him. "So you think I am cute human?" Jake Morrison Amy covered her mouth to hide her laughter, while Captain Martinez looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor, and the Azurian nobles whispered among themselves in their melodic language. Jake knew he should probably apologize or backtrack, but something about the way Princess Kira was looking at him with genuine interest and amusement made him bold. "Well, yeah," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "I mean, you are cute, but also, you know, dignified and royal and all that." The princess surprised him, again by reaching out and touching his hand with her own, and her skin was warm and had a slight luminescence to it. Azurea, when someone causes another to show the violet flush, it means they have touched their heart, she explained, and her eyes never leaving his, it is considered a sign of deep connection. Jake felt his mouth go dry as he processed what she was saying, and around them the nobles began murmuring more excitedly, and Captain Martinez stepped forward, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. "Your Highness, we came here to discuss the trade agreement between our worlds," she said diplomatically. Princess Kira nodded, but kept her hand in Jake's and addressed the captain while her gaze remained fixed on the lieutenant. "Yes, the trade agreement," she said, and her voice taking on a more formal tone, "but I propose an addition to our arrangement." She turned to face her court and announced in a voice that carried authority beyond her years, "This human has done what no one in my court has ever managed, and he made me feel something real and unguarded, and according to our customs, he has earned the right to court me if he wishes." The throne room erupted in gasps and excited chatter, and Jake stood frozen, wondering if this was actually happening, or if he had fallen asleep in his quarters and was having the strangest dream of his life. Amy leaned in and whispered, "Dude, you just accidentally wooed an alien princess by comparing her to a Smurf. And this is the best day ever." Captain Martinez looked torn between professional frustration and barely contained amusement, and she sighed heavily before addressing Princess Kira. "Your Highness, this is quite unexpected, and Lieutenant Morrison would need to understand the full implications of such an arrangement." Princess Kira finally released Jake's hand and turned to face him fully, and her expression was open and hopeful. "I know this is sudden," she said, "and I do not expect an answer now, but you saw me not as a princess or a political figure, but as someone who could be compared to a small, cute creature from your world, and no one has ever made me feel so normal and so special at the same time." Jake found his voice finally, and despite the absurdity of the situation, he felt himself smiling, "I would be honored to get to know you better," he said, and then added, "Your Highness, and also, I promise to stop making Smurf jokes." She laughed again, and the sound filled him with warmth. "No, please continue," she said, and her eyes, twinkling, "I find I quite enjoy them." Over the following weeks, as the diplomatic teams worked out the details of the trade agreement, Jake and Princess Kira spent hours together, and she showed him the bioluminescent gardens of her palace, and he told her stories about Earth. And they discovered that despite coming from different worlds, they had more in common than either expected. Amy became the unofficial photographer of their courtship, and she took countless pictures of the human lieutenant and the blue princess walking through crystal corridors and laughing at shared jokes. Captain Martinez eventually admitted that while unconventional, the relationship between Jake and Kira had actually strengthened the alliance between Earth and Azuria more than any treaty could have. On the last night before the Horizon was scheduled to depart, Jake and Kira stood on a balcony overlooking the purple sky of her world, and she leaned against him in comfortable silence. "So what happens now?" he asked, knowing that his duty required him to return to Earth. She looked up at him with those incredible eyes and smiled. "Now we prove that distance means nothing when two hearts have connected," she said. "And besides, your people have something called video calls, do they not?" Jake laughed and pulled her closer. "Yeah, we do," he said, and then more seriously, "I never thought comparing someone to a Smurf would change my life." She reached up and touched his face gently. "On my world, we believe the universe brings people together in unexpected ways," she said. "And perhaps your Smurf joke was exactly what needed to happen." As they stood together under alien stars, Jake Morrison realized that sometimes the most important diplomatic breakthroughs came not from carefully planned speeches or formal negotiations, but from honest moments of human connection, even when that connection involved blue-skin cartoon references and an accidental compliment that made a princess blush.